Welcome to the School of Moxie podcast. I'm your host, Mary Williams. This season, we're talking about one thing. My business pays for my life. We're not talking about side hustles or someday dreams. We're talking about businesses that actually pay for your life. So your rent and your mortgage, your health insurance premium, the whole kit and caboodle. The thing you are not going to get today in this episode, you are not going to hear my guest read their resume at you for 15 minutes. We're skipping the highlight reel and going straight to the good stuff. We're talking about timelines and trade-offs and the money conversations that not enough people are talking about out loud, but we're about to do it here on this show. If you want to know all the details about who this person is and what they do, that's what the show notes are for. Go check them out. Follow their links. Please support their work because you don't really get to know somebody from just one episode. You get to know them by showing up for their work day after day. That's what they've done for their own communities, and it's what I'm asking you to do for them. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to the final season of the School of Moxie podcast. This season, you're going to hear me ask these questions to every guest. So to kick it off, I'm turning it around on myself for episode 1. I built the season with one idea. My business pays for my life. I wasn't going to sit here and ask a dozen people to get honest about their money and their trade-offs and their comfort shows without doing the same thing myself. So this episode's a little different. It's just me, but with the same discussion guide. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to ask yourself if you can answer these questions too. Whether or not you can legitimately say that your business pays for your life. Why did I choose to make this rule for this season? Well, it's because I have been hungry for conversations with my peers who also have no safety net, and I mean zero safety net. We are not supported by a spouse's salary, and even in the case, which some of the guests do have, where they are supported by spousal health insurance, they are able to back up with facts that they could cover those bills if the provider's income suddenly went away. That is what happens when your business pays for your life. I suspect that there are a lot more people out there who don't realize that they legitimately can say that their business pays for their life, because I fell into this trap also thinking that maybe my business wasn't as successful as I thought because I don't think I've hit the revenue goals that I want to see from it, or that there isn't some bigger flashy bragging right that I can share on social media. But that's not what makes the truth the truth. Either you can pay your bills on your own or you cannot. If you hung out with me for season 2 of this podcast, you know that I went on full attack mode with the coaching industry by talking about Ted Lasso in a solo season. I watched my own industry start to sink like the Titanic because there was so much grift and codependency baked into the sales and customer service models, and it grossed me out so much that I shut down my own mastermind to find a way to help people better. That way was made clear in season 1 of this podcast when I ran an experiment to record all of my guests talking about business through every episode of The Last of Us by sitting in person across a table in a physical studio. I was on a flight home from Nice, France, reflecting on how strange it was that I found a studio on the French Riviera easier than I could find a place to record here in the Metro Portland, Vancouver region. And that's what kicked off the rebirth of my next phase in business, which is owning a brick-and-mortar studio, and it's called Sasquatch Media Grounds. So now on season 3, here I am with a full year behind me, holding the keys to a brick-and-mortar production studio. And it's turned out to be the gift that just keeps on giving. I still get to coach my clients, but without all the coaching industry bullshit. In this space that I thought was going to be all about recording episodes for other people has turned out to be a revenue development space where I manage talent and build brands and help really amazing people create content that contributes to this season's theme. My business pays for my life. And before I start answering my own questions that I peppered everyone else with, I want you to think about your life and business. You may find yourself feeling triggered at different times, and I want you to recognize when those moments happen. Stay with the feeling. Don't drift away from it. Ask yourself what's going on there, because even if your business does not pay for your life, that does not mean that you aren't as serious or that you aren't legitimate. What I do want you to focus on is that each of this season's guests talks about making decisions without a safety net. We all need to hear more from people who do not have a safety net, because they're frequently the ones changing the landscape of entrepreneurship because there is no comfort zone for them. And for all my listeners who have comfortable safety nets, my challenge to you is this. Can you recognize and fully acknowledge your safety net? And then can you lean into that safety net and start making bolder decisions? Because you can. And guests on this season, including myself, don't have the luxury of freezing. And I see my safety net folks, which might be you listening to this right now, wondering why everything feels so hard right now, when actually the hardest decision you've been making is the act of making no decision at all. All right, let's get into the questions. So first, we're starting with comfort shows. And the first question I asked every single person was, what's your comfort show or comfort movie? First of all, you're going to love everybody's responses to this. I'm recording the solo episode after I have recorded all of the guest interviews. They're so amazing. I cannot wait for you to hear them. And it really got me thinking, well, what's my comfort show or movie? Because a lot of you who follow me know that I am chronically online. I'm an absolute TV movie fanatic. And so it's really hard for me to choose, honestly. I have a lot of choices, but for this episode on this season and this show, I decided to choose the movie Spy with Melissa McCarthy. The second question is, why is this your comfort show? What keeps bringing you back to it? And if you are listening to this in your car or while you're taking a walk, just remember all of these questions are in the show notes, so you can go back to them and you can use them as reflective journaling questions too. So why is this my comfort show? Well, I love underdog stories. I love that in this story, the main character played by Melissa McCarthy has incredible skills, and she learns by the end of the movie that not only is she an absolute badass, but she's really allowed to take up space. The third question is, what does this story reveal about your values, leadership style, brand, or approach to business? So my answer from the second question tumbles right on into the third. In this movie, Melissa McCarthy plays this character who's not your typical super spy. She's done the support work in the background. She knows all the tea going on with all of these super spies at the CIA. She doesn't do it alone, and she trusts her friends to help her. And I feel like that lesson shows up so big in this season of the podcast. So many guests said that their answer to success was, I don't do it alone. You cannot do this alone. And I love that this movie and this fictional story really embodies how much community helps her get through all of the trials and tribulations that go on for about 90 minutes. She doesn't assume that she's better than everyone else. I worked so hard to make sure that I really stay in my lane in business. I've had my ego moments like everybody else, but I never assume that I know more than the next person. I never assume that because somebody has a smaller audience than me, that I somehow know more than they do. I also don't assume the same of somebody who has a larger audience than me. And I would encourage you to really examine that as you look at who you put on a pedestal and who maybe needs to be taken down a couple of notches. And at the same time, she is genuinely impressed by the other spies around her, including the villains, interestingly enough, which I think is so important, because a lot of times we look at somebody and there's always a villain in our story. Sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's a pattern in the market or something you have to do, and it's not a person. But if you can look at whatever you're villainizing and you can see it for a reflection on something that matters to you, you're probably going to find a growth moment in that. And I have found that in my space too. When I look at my competitors and I feel any feelings of envy or jealousy, I lean into that feeling and I look at it and I say, why am I feeling that? I must want something that they have, or I think I want something that they have. A lot of times I'll look at it and I'll realize upon deeper reflection, I don't really want what they have. I just feel like maybe they're getting more visibility for something where I feel like that's unfair because I think I'm doing it better. And then I have to ask myself, well, how well am I communicating that out into the world? And so I love that in the movie Spy, she spends probably about half the movie with the main villain, and she learns a lot about herself by spending time with the villain. She can improvise. I think that's so important in business. You cannot just follow formulas all the time. Whatever formula somebody told you worked for that person at a very specific time with very specific ingredients in the kitchen, as I like to say, it's just not instantly or exactly recreatable because somebody figured out how to do something at one time and maybe they were able to recreate it again. But the market is constantly shifting, and if you cannot improvise, you're going to have a really hard time in your business. The other things I love about this character is that she can deal with excessive amounts of bullshit. Everybody around her is such a bullshitter, and she's just like, yeah, I don't have time for that. And also, like, I'm busy here. And I love that she just keeps moving through. She doesn't get stuck on it. Because it's an underdog story, ultimately, this character, she deserves better from her industry, and she learns how to claim it. And it really serves as like a pep talk for me because I have been working inside my industry for so long in media, and I'm not famous, and I don't have pretty privilege or any of those things. And I really love learning how to lean into the spaces and the people who support me the best, and realizing that that is the definition of winning. And so when I ask people in my studio, do you want to be famous? I'm asking them that question because I'm trying to figure out, what are they trying to build in what capacity? Because nobody has ever delivered an answer like, I want to be a movie star. And if they did, I'd be like, I'm not the person for you, but I have resources for you. What I'm looking for is, where do you feel like you deserve better from your industry, and how do we go and get that? And I just love that the movie Spy has me laughing the whole time, has me rooting for somebody who I would not automatically assume is the main hero. And I highly, highly recommend this movie for you if you need kind of like, you know, a boost or a happy day in your business and you're feeling a little down and out. Come back and tell me that this is not a business story. Okay. So we're going to move on to the other questions in the discussion guide, where we're talking about my business paying for my life. So question number 4, at what point did you realize your business was paying for your life? I love the answers that everybody gives. It's always longer than you think. So I can tell you that I leapt out full time in the year of 2016. It was not an elegant leap. It was messy as all fucking get out. I was living in Austin, Texas. I had been working for a library as their head of technology, and somebody I knew from my Los Angeles network had a startup. She relocated her startup from Los Angeles to Austin. She was originally from Texas, and it turned out to be an absolute sham. She was a terrible person. An absolutely terrible person, which I discovered once I got behind the scenes. She didn't have payroll for the next 2 weeks. She was abusive to her staff, and she wanted me to run her operations. And I was like, I can't do this. And so I leapt. I had like just a teeny tiny amount of liquid savings that I could really get by on. And I was like, it's enough. I'll figure it out. I will build the plane as I fly it. And I had bought a house. I had a ridiculously low mortgage because I bought my house in Austin before the city exploded into what we know of in Austin today. I still had my bills. I had a lot of abject terror on a day-to-day basis. I didn't know if I was going to make it, but all of my entertainment contacts kept contacting me and asking, was I free for contracts? And I picked up B2B consulting. And you know what? It ended up working out. It was okay. That eventually turned into coaching, and then that becomes a whole other story. But I realized in 2016 how quickly my business suddenly was paying for my life. There was no safety net. It was just me and my little house out in the country and figuring out how to offer consulting. I think when I finally got paid by Fandango to fly out on site, I realized, oh shit, I think that my business is paying for my life. And that was a really exciting moment. The next question is, how long did it take you to reach that milestone? I'm going to tell you, for me, I truly feel like it was about 6 years, because I started blogging in 2010. And when I was blogging, I was like, man, this is great. And I saw other people who were doing it full time. And so I did what I do, and I reverse engineered their history and their patterns. And I saw a pattern that they would begin blogging, and then about 2 years later, they would leap out full time because they would have enough sponsorships and advertising revenue, and maybe they were teaching and other things and coaching. And so I saw saw that pattern and I said, aha, now that I see the pattern, I want that pattern. And what I did is I kept my day job because I was too afraid to quit. I was captured by the golden handcuffs, the golden coffin of corporate life, where you have your health insurance covered and you've got a matching 401k and you get the biweekly salary and on and on. But it had never fulfilled me. I hated having a corporate career. I always felt like I was caged, but I was really afraid to leap out. So I feel like it really took about 6 years, and it took that catalyzing event in 2016, terrible as it was, to just finally be thrown out of the nest. Honestly, I feel like the universe did me a solid with that, because I don't know that I would have leapt as easily if I hadn't, which is kind of a weird thing to put together into one sentence. Our next question is, what changed about you when your business became responsible for supporting your life? I definitely had to get real with who was a bullshitter and who was going to genuinely help me. Talk is cheap. You learn that real fast as a business owner. Whether your business is paying for your life or not, you learn that talk is real fucking cheap. People will sell you the sun, the moon, and the stars verbally, but when it comes to putting your money where your mouth is, suddenly they're gone. So I found that my friends definitely changed. Unfortunately, because I was in a very vulnerable spot at that time in my life, I also ended up in an abusive relationship with a now ex-partner, and I had to learn that I was not going to be supporting myself if I didn't put on my oxygen mask and leave that. I stayed far longer than I would have liked in hindsight. But what I learned was that there was no saving something that was just an extractive situation. I feel like that relationship in my personal life, because it was affecting my business life in terrible ways, was really a great lesson for me to recognize when there are extractive patterns with potential clients or networking partners. And that has really shown me very quickly over time who I will tolerate, what I will tolerate, and what I won't. So that relationship left me with a massive debt load, and having the responsibility of my business paying for my life on top of a debt load, that has been quite the journey. Probably better saved for an entirely different podcast episode, because that would be a very long story. But I do feel like that is what changed the most drastically when my business became responsible for supporting my life. The next question is, do you feel like you work more than some of your peers? Why or why not? This was an interesting question to ask my guests, because it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I think I expected more people to say yes, and a bunch of them said no. And I was like, oh, this is very interesting. I feel like I need to sit with their answers more, so I will be doing that with you throughout the rest of the season. My answer, though, is yes, all the time. I feel like I work more than my peers all of the time. Owning my brick and mortar studio has changed a lot of things, and I am definitely feeling founder life in a way that I frankly just didn't feel when I was more of a freelance style online service provider. I don't believe that service providers are all freelancers, but I do feel like that lifestyle and the structure of the business is more freelance-like than what I am doing at the moment. So I honestly do not have the cash flow yet to hire people to do all of the other things. So I still do a lot of it myself. I hire out for the highest grade expertise on things that it is much more cost effective for me in the long run to hire someone to do. I always say I am never too proud to do admin work myself. And because I'm a systems person, I tend to systematize and automate things as much as possible. So it's taken a lot of workload off of myself in that way. But yeah, I don't have enough cash flow yet to just outsource everything, and cash flow is the prime directive. So even if I can pay someone to do a few small things, I make sure that my physical location here in the studio is fully solvent. But the thing that I'm going to come back and remind us all before we're done with my solo episode here is that I like working. Like, I really like it. Working more than your peers isn't a marker of a negative or a positive thing. It's really more like, how do you work, you know? And I feel like this question gets at a much deeper truth. Do you like what you do? I think you need to ask yourself if you actually like working. And guess what? I fucking love it. So for me, do I work more than some of my peers? Yes, I most definitely do. And I love it. And I don't mind putting in those hours. I know that there's some toxic people out there who in the past have said, at the end of the day, I will outwork you. And I would absolutely echo that sentiment, but I don't mean it in a toxic way. I mean that at the end of the day, somebody else who doesn't love what they do more than how much I love what I do will quit, and I will keep going, and I will have a greater gain by morning. So that is how I approach the answer to that question. Our next question: what do you currently pay for health insurance each month, and how has that influenced your business decisions? I added this question in because I wanted to feel better about my own healthcare premium. It has been so painful to pay it. I have so many personal issues with the American privatized healthcare system, but this is a system I live in. I pay $731.64 for a single silver plan with Blue Cross in Washington state. I don't qualify for subsidies with the healthcare exchange in Washington state, so I pay Blue Cross directly. You are going to hear every guest this season with a very wide range of answers. Some of us pay the adulting premiums. Some people are kind of like playing a little bit of roulette. And then some people have a little bit of subsidization while they are getting their feet back under them, but their business is definitely paying for their life right now. I can say that I have lived and operated without health insurance. I would not do that today. I have used super cheap bronze level plans in the past, but the out-of-pocket costs that would get added on when I went in to see my doctor or had any labs done and so forth, it really added up. And if you added that up to match the monthly premium, sometimes it was more than what I'm paying now in my monthly premium. I learned over time by paying attention to the math, what would make more sense. And so I remind myself of that with this premium every month. I am definitely aging, and I'm on the eve of my 47th birthday when I'm recording this episode right now. I really can't afford to play roulette with my health right now. The abuse that I told you about has left me with a lot of lingering and chronic trauma-induced healthcare needs, and I'd really rather pay the bill than remove the stability that I am building back into my body for long-term health and quality of life. So the confessional that I do have with my answer is that I auto-bill this premium to a credit card that earns points, and that credit card is definitely not paid off right now. So I'm definitely floating my premium on credit, and that really sucks. But I'm able to do it, and I'm able to use a resource that I have in order to make sure that I maintain my healthcare access here in the United States. We do have a couple guests this season who don't primarily live in the US, and their answers about the healthcare that they get outside off of US soil is incredible. So pay attention to those episodes. You will enjoy it. You might cry a little bit about your healthcare insurance too. All right, the next question. What have you given up in order to build a business that fully supports your life? I can tell you I don't do the fancy things that I see other people do as much. I don't know that I even want those things. I was reflecting on my answer to this question before recording. You probably won't find me indulging in spa days. I have had boom times in my life and business when spa days were totally possible. I know I will get back to those because there are up times and down times. I have had periods of my life in the past where I easily paid $1,000 a month for weekly body work. Yes, it was amazing. I still love my massage therapist. I wish I could see him more often, but I can't right now. I've had periods of life where I easily paid $75 every other week to have my nails done in the effort of being polished and maintaining an appearance. I don't do that now. It's an extra expense that I just don't need at the moment. And I ask myself regularly if those things make me feel like I can show up stronger as a founder. The answer frequently comes back, no. So I really have to have a concrete decision with myself. I also don't get any paid time off. I will always be taking my laptop with me wherever I go because the true cost of being off the clock as a business owner is astronomical. I don't know anyone whose business pays for their life where they aren't paying that cost one way or another. I prefer not to work like a dog to get on a plane and then take a trip and then come back from the trip and be doubly exhausted because I'm catching up from everything. I'd rather do a little work but at a lighter level while I'm on a trip to kind of keep everything sort of at an even stasis. And so you'll hear other people in this season have varying answers to this question. Some people take full PTO, some people do not. The majority of us do not. But I think if you can find a way to take PTO and really take a break, that's great. I just know from healing all of the trauma responses in my physical health that I need PTO moments on a weekly basis. And so I'm always trying to hack new ways to make more space and time for myself on a regular basis instead of like waiting for some magical moment that is months away and requires a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort to make happen. The next question: when was the last time you genuinely felt the weight of knowing it was all on you? My answer to this is I feel this every fucking day. I think this might be the hallmark of someone who legitimately can say that their business pays for their life. You will feel the weight of it. The economy is also super crunchy right now as I'm recording this, thanks to Trump economics. And I don't know anyone who isn't feeling the pinch right now. Those of us who are dinosaurs in our respective corners of entrepreneurship know that cycles turn over all the time. But this particular cycle right now is particularly crunchy. So the next time you think to yourself that someone is selling you really hard right now and you're like, oh, I'm so annoyed, and maybe you should ask yourself if that person has to pay for their entire life, because I bet that they do, and you should probably give them some grace right now. And even if they don't have a business that pays for their life, they probably have some goals. And just because their business doesn't pay for their life doesn't mean that their sales cycle is less legitimate. So if you're in business, you are here to make money. That is the system we live in. Do I love capitalism? No, I do not. But it is the system we live in. And as we all collectively work toward a better future where it's not so scuzzy all the time, you're going to have to sell something. And so I really feel like if you are annoyed with other people selling things, there's probably a money issue going on in your own business, or maybe you are taken care of and this probably isn't the space for you where I'm talking right now anyways. I'd be surprised if you're listening to this answer right now. Next question: what's easier now that your business pays for your life? Hands down, my time. I get to control every aspect of my time, and it is so important to me. I am a caregiver, and having the flexibility to arrange my days and weeks without asking for permission like a child from my boss, it's the best part about all of this. My nervous system is also much happier because I found corporate office environments to be extremely stressful. I hated commuting to work. It felt like I was driving to prison. It was awful. So there was just too much noise in every office and too many interruptions, and I am simply more productive in my home office and now also at my studio's physical location. I get to control the environments, and it allows me to work within my own neurodivergent palace of perfection, and I love it that way. All right, next question. What's a business expense nobody warned you about? I'm going to tell you my answer to this is all the fees. There's a fee for everything, damn it. And there's extra time and labor that you never expect that also is a fee cost, really, when you get down to it. Here at the studio, I have a really fun story from very recently. I was notified that the fire marshal would come through for an inspection, and it came with a fee for a fire code license that I had no idea I was going to be paying for. I kept thinking, why wasn't it in my commercial lease? Well, they don't have to put that in the commercial lease. They just have to notify you that the fire marshal is coming by. So that was a big surprise. The fire marshal took an issue with the hedge wall that makes up 1/4 of my studio's physical set space. So it looks like a box hedge, and it's hung on the wall. And I have a rule in my studio where I only want real plants. But this is one of those things where I saw it at Costco. It had twinkle lights in it, and I was like, this is the perfect backdrop. So I hung it up, I got it all installed, and they took issue with it when they first came in. And we spent a whole month communicating back and forth about this hedge wall, only for me to find out that they decided it was fine to leave as is. The amount of extra labor from that communication was insane. I didn't know if I was going to have to redesign a whole chunk of my set. I didn't know if I was going to have to get more things approved by them. It was a lot of extra. So all the fees, all the unexpected interruptions in that way, is difficult to deal with. So in the way that I was communicating extra with the fire marshal, I can tell you that I've also continued to find ways to reduce my time expense because people want to have a coffee chat or pick my brain or ask for services, but then they change their mind on the proposal, and that I just don't have time for that. All of these experiences though help me to strengthen my systems and build more resilient lead pipelines, but doing that work of building better systems through experience is actually quite costly, and it is absolutely annoying as fuck. So I have started to host networking events with my yes friend, Megan Ekman, my co-host from the Awkward Handshake podcast. I am starting to find ways to take all the people who just want proximity and they want to chat with me and to put them in a container where it's like, well, you are also looking for good connections. So how about if we all just get together? And if they cannot come to that, there's not a whole lot else that I can do for you. Question 13. If your business suddenly lost 50% of its revenue tomorrow, what would you do first? Me and a lot of other guests this season all come back to networking. I think I prepare for the 50% loss like all the time though, because I've already lived through it. And once you touch a hot stove, you learn real quickly not to touch that stove again. So you have to network all the time and build genuine relationships. And learning to build genuine relationships is a skill set. I love assessing all the relationships that come to me while I'm doing this 24/7 all year long, especially during good and easy times, because I want to see how reliable someone is. Because when times are crunchy like they are now, what I will be doing is I do one-on-one reach outs to my direct contacts who I know through real life actions and experiences that they mean what they say, so that when I'm asking for referrals and recommendations or advice, I know they will respond and I know that I can trust their response. Right now, I'm watching a lot of people around me struggle with this because they've essentially been caught with their pants down. They've been lazy with networking, they've got shitty relationships, and they are kind of shitty at being good relationships for other people too. And now suddenly they need something. Sometimes you have to rebuild during tough times, and the constraint from the 50% loss, or maybe more than that, will help you ditch your own bullshit real fast. All right, the next question. What do you think many entrepreneurs misunderstand about becoming fully self-supporting through their business? Again, you have to like what you do. You have to actually enjoy working. You cannot go around believing all that fake grifter bullshit content on social media. Anyone who's bragging about how much money they generated this quarter when they know the economy is down, I call bullshit on it every time. It probably is. It's this thing where they're like, I had $1 million launch. And it's like, yeah, you spent $1,010 to have $1 million launch. So your net is actually like $10. So you will discover that some people around you are just not good people. And that is a sad fact. It's always really disappointing to me. I love to believe that people are really good. And I'm always sad when it turns out that they're not. You cannot give your friends your paid expertise for free, full stop. And a true friend is not going to ask you for that. Your true friend will offer to pay you. In my friend group, we pay each other and we definitely help each other out with things. You have to curate your community ruthlessly. There are people who are extractive and there are people who will mutually fill your cups together with you. You have to learn how to tell the difference between them, because the people who love bomb you and tell you all the sweet nothings in your ear when the times are good, they're going to want free things from you when times are bad. And if you realize that, oh shit, there's a lot of extractive people around me, that can be a real gut punch and it can be really hard to deal with. So learning to be ruthless when times are good is a really good skill to develop. You also cannot save a genuinely nice person from their own therapy problems. This has got to be one of the worst things that I struggle with. Next question. What are business programs, coaches, and communities not talking about enough that keeps people stuck in dependency patterns? You have to bring at least 80% to the table. As a coach, I can tell you a coach cannot want an outcome more for you than you want it for yourself. By purchasing a service or a program, especially the expensive ones, it can feel like you forked over not only your money, but your desires and your energies and your hopes and your dreams. And your monetary payment does not automatically grant you the end result. You still have to do the work. That is really important. I see people pay for programs because they're looking for friendship, they're lonely, only, you should not have to pay for friendship. Friends are not the same thing as your business community. Yes, there is an overlap in a center of the Venn diagram, but you should not have to pay for access to who you call your friends. And accepting the consequences and the gravity of being financially responsible means that there are a lot of really unsexy decisions. You don't get the luxury of saying you'll only wait for the most perfect clients, or that you have hard limits on how much time you're willing to work. Like people who claim that they quit work by 3 p.m. every day, I'm always questioning, like, so who's paying the rest of your bills? Or maybe you just sell something that is like genie in a bottle level magic. I don't know. There are unicorns in this world, but unicorn magic has been known to wear off. So I'm always real cautious about that. There may be goals that you want to work towards, but when your business needs cash flow and the cash in this world is tight, which it is right now, you will learn quickly that only someone whose business does not pay for their life will give you this terrible, no good, very bad advice. And those are people that I hold a lot of caution around. All right, the last official question is, what's the bill that you're weirdly proud to pay? My answer to this is honestly all of them. After surviving the abuse that I survived in my life and saving my life and my business afterward, I'm so proud of everything that I have done. But lately, the lease on my studio is an incredible accomplishment. I've paid the lease for a full year and 1 month when this recording drops. And I never thought I was going to get a brick and mortar space at all, but here I am, and there's no one behind me floating these bills. I'm making it happen, and this space has inspired me to do so many more things than I ever thought I would be doing. And I'm so excited for you to hang out with me on this journey while I continue to share it with you over time. Everybody this season finished with a final sentence. We did a little Mad Libs game, and it goes like this: my business pays for my life, and that means fill in the blank. So for me, my business pays for my life, and that means that no matter how hard it gets, I am fully capable of generating whatever I need whenever I need it. I don't need to wait for permission. I don't need to ask for handouts, and I'm free to change the world one voice at a time on my terms. I don't have a spouse who's asking where's the return on my investment. The only thing I am responsible for is me and my financial holdings and my financial decision, and it is such an empowering place to operate from. I love that the other guests this season share that with me. I don't know that I'm done being hungry for more of these conversations, honestly, but I think that having the guests on this season really helped me scratch that itch a bit more, and I was so inspired by all the things they said too. What I find interesting is that I did not have as many casting call submissions as I expected, and none of them came from men. I love that this season features female founders only, and I hope it inspires you too, because I know that there's a lot of you who watch and listen to the content that I put out. Maybe you even came over from one of my guests' audiences, in which case, welcome to the wild and wacky world of Sasquatch Media Grounds and Sensible Woo. I did have some people who applied where their circumstances were right on the line of being able to fit in with this pool of guests that I did end up featuring this season. And it doesn't mean that their businesses don't pay for their lives, but the level of consequence that every guest this season lives with on their shoulders on a daily basis is why they are featured together. So if you're listening to this season and you're answering these questions alongside all of us, and you're like, well, like I do, but also I kind of don't have the responsibility of my business paying for my life. Again, there might be some things that trigger you where you're like, you know, maybe I lean in too hard to the safety net around me, and that there's a bit more room to be a bit more bold. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. I am not saying that anybody should take a financial risk that you should not be taking. At the same time, if you're not making decisions, that is definitely a decision. So if you've been trying to figure out why your dreams and goals just aren't hitting that level that you want, I do think that there's some magic in this season for you. By hearing the very real consequences of survival from this season's guests, you might just frame your business decisions a little differently from now on. And that decision, again, might be to start making actual decisions again. I know that the world has been really hard. Any of you who follow me regularly know what my politics are. You know where my stance is. You know that I think this Trump administration is absolute bullshit. It has made the world really difficult. It has made a lot of people freeze. I've had open conversations in other spaces with one of our guests this season, Eunice Brownlee, all about coercive control and abusive dynamics. She and I talk about it publicly and openly with our audiences. And one of the things we have noticed is there's a lot of people who clearly have never been through an abuse pattern before, and we are collectively going through an abuse pattern, and it is really, really hard. So I do not want to diminish that. Just remember that to not make a decision is definitely a decision. And it's also a luxury when your business does not pay for your life. So this season's guests are here to inspire you to do the thing. You've hesitated long enough. Remember to go check the show notes on each episode for the links to everyone you've heard from this season. Please go support their work and they will support you back. That's it for this episode of the School of Moxie podcast. This season was produced and edited by me, Mary Williams, through Sensible Woo and now Sasquatch Media Grounds out of Vancouver, Washington. If you're a business owner and you want help building your own media engine, come and subscribe to my emails at sensiblewoo.com/subscribe. I'll show you how it's done and I'll hook you up with the good stuff. See you on the inside.